The recovery on GT Goku's 5LL has been reduced. Previously, this was -4 on block, so safe, but, if you wanted to try and do something like a dash block afterwards, it could be a little bit tricky. My dash got caught up by the opponent's immediate mash right there, so this really wasn't a reliable option select for a human to do. On whiff, it took about 52, 51 frames for the move to complete, and for GT Goku to recover. Now let's take a look at 5LL with its new recovery. Now it's -2 instead of -4 on block. Again, it's fundamentally still safe, so this might not change a whole lot for most of the GT Goku players out there, but if you're trying to use dash block pressure after 5LL, it should be a little easier for you to do, given the fact that you have 2 more frames to work with. In fact, right there, I was able to pull it off. You can tell because the dust cloud behind my GT Goku was able to appear, so I was able to get a dash off and still block the opponent's immediate mash. Additionally, this also means that you recover using this move faster in neutral. The in-game frame display will tell you anything between frame 47, 48, and 49 for its total frames. Previously, GT Goku's full light auto combo, which is a tick throw, wasn't able to actually be used in pressure. Regardless of how much you delayed, the throw would simply not come out, and that's because of the behavior of standing 5LL. You could cause it to connect on a whiff by canceling the 5LL early, but if the opponent was already blocking, then this simply wasn't an option they had to worry about in GT Goku's pressure. Much like many other characters whose third auto combo attack is a throw, GT Goku can now hold forward during his auto combo to cause this attack to be delayed to actually use it as a tick throw. The old version still works, of course, which you want to use in your combo game. But with this delay, we have to actually look at it as a mix-up tool. And honestly, it's pretty competitive in terms of its startup. 25 frames startup is about 1 frame slower than most of the reactable command grab metrics, where it's usually average about frame 24. So this is a nice tool for GT Goku to get, making his auto combo pressure just a little more scary against the opponent. GT Goku's 5H also has a couple of buffs, namely to the startup as well as to the recovery. Let's check out the old properties. It used to be 13 frame startups and a -8 on block, so it was an unsafe normal for GT Goku to stagger off of, but he had plenty of cancel options after this, so it wasn't too big of a deal. However, because of the old startup, you could true string into this from his mediums, as well as his key blast, the pull. But if you tried doing this from something like his 5L, then there was actually a gap. 5LL would work fine. But 2L also had that gap. So you could do things right here to try and bait out some sort of frame 4 reversal option from the opponent, I suppose, but you didn't really see too many plays like that, since going straight from your lights into a heavy was, cutting your pressure way too short. GT Goku often thrives off of a stack of pressure, considering the fact that 5M is safe on block, as is his 2M. So he has plenty of options prior to 5H to safely stagger off of, so cutting all of those out to go straight into it really wasn't something that you would see often. Let's take a look at the buffed 5H. It's 2 frames faster at frame 11 startup, and now it's only -5 on block, meaning it is a safe normal for GT Goku to use in terms of his stagger pressure. Every single one of GT's normals that leave him grounded is now safe on block. The only exceptions really being his 1, 2, and 3S that launch him airborne. And of course 2H, but you kind of want to see that out of your anti-air that takes you off of the ground anyway. So GT Goku's stagger pressure is actually quite monstrous because he can stagger off of any normal and be safe. So that's a pretty big buff for GT Goku, making him a pretty decent pressure monster. Of course, he still has the issue of having some relatively stubble normals in some of his kit, but he does have some, big normals, of course, to poke at the opponent with, which, is something that I think most of the cast could appreciate at this point of the game's lifespan. Additionally, because 5H is faster, this could have some impact in terms of his combo game, giving you new links that didn't exist before thanks to the faster startup, but it also means that some block strings that weren't true strings are now true strings. All of a sudden, you can true string from 5L and 2L into a 5H, so there's that for you. Not sure how viable or how noteworthy that is, but I wanted to demonstrate the principle here. Crouching Heavy has a couple of buffs as well. Previously, the startup was 13 frame startup, just like his old 5 Heavy property. In addition to that, it was also pretty bad at anti-airing cross-ups. In a situation like this, if this GT Goku were to go for a cross-up on me, and I try to anti-air it, well, I simply wouldn't reach here. I know that the other GT Goku isn't actually hitting me here, but, you know, pretend it's lap code for a second. In fact, let's look at that. As you can tell, this is a cross-up. If I try to anti-air it, cool, I'm able to dodge the cross-up move itself, but now I'm like negative 33 in lap code's face, and I'm eating a punish. Now for the new 2H properties. It's a frame faster at 12 frame startup, which could be the difference between you being able to anti-air something and not. So while it is a small buff that doesn't really have a whole lot of combo utility, it's a small change that GT Goku can appreciate. What he appreciates more is a buff that we've seen given to other characters like Cell and Vegito in this patch, where if you're holding down forward, GT Goku will now lunge forward a bit more. This is the normal version where he stays in place. And that's the down forward version where he lunges forward a bit more. This should allow him to actually get anti-airs on some cross-ups now. Again, which is a massive buff. Now the opponent has to be concerned for when they choose to go for a cross-up option against GT Goku, because if GT Goku makes the right read, he actually gets rewarded for it now. This is a really nice change and a great buff to GT Goku's defense. Standing Unique Attack has a couple of buffs to it, so let's actually go ahead and explore them. For starters, previously, it didn't quite reach full screen. It was a pretty big normal, though. And as you can tell, it was a smash launcher. It was also a pretty good, useful tool in GT Goku's pressure since, you know, it was -2 on block, giving him a very safe stagger to work with here. However, it can only be performed once in a Z combo. All of those restrictions have pretty much been released, so let's go ahead and take a look at them. The old range of standing unique attack could be a bit frustrating at times, since it wasn't quite full screen. If the opponent was able to keep at full screen distance against you, they were able to continue to use Ki Blast to zone you, despite the fact that standing unique attack had Ki Blast reflect properties previously. Just out of reach of this. Again, kind of frustrating. Let's get into the buffs to 5S. They've increased the distance move, so now it's a true full screen option. This completely changes like the fundamentals of playing neutral against GT Goku if you're a Ki Blast user on their head. Instead of being able to try and zone him out at full screen, now GT Goku can call you out and completely punish you for trying to Ki Blast zone him. You could even do it on reaction with GT Goku, so this is a pretty scary change that pretty much shuts down anyone trying to Ki Blast zone against GT Goku. In addition to that, there's a few other changes going on with 5S. You can now perform it up to 3 times. In addition to that, it can also be Gatlinged into itself. This just adds more mental stagger and mind games to GT Goku's offensive pressure, because again, he can do this from full screen and actually close a considerable amount of distance towards you by using this over and over again. We do need to examine this, though. As you can tell, it's not a true block string, so the opponent does have some counterplay options here, such as Reflect, for example. I'm not actually quite sure if this is able to beat 4-frame reversals, and I would have to try and test it out on a character that does have a 4-frame reversal. So let's actually do a quick switcheroo. And use Janemba since his teleport is 4 frames. It turns out 4-frame reversals don't really work in this situation. That was teleport. And that was an attempt at a level 1 super, which is a 4-frame reversal now, almost across the board for this version of the game. So you're able to frame trap against 4-frame reversals. So the only thing you're really worried about is getting reflected out here, which just pushes you back far away. And if you have another 5S in your options to cancel into, you're probably just going to swing the stick again. Or you're looking out for frame 1 reversal DPs. Let's look at some other gaps that might exist here. Obviously, 5S into 5H is still a true block string. And 5H into 5S is still an untrue block string. But what about 5S into 2S? This creates a very interesting situation, actually, where GT Goku has a low that he can threaten with in a true block string. So while the opponent could try to buffer Reflect against multiple 5Ss, because of the gap right here, to try to get a perfect reflect to stop the pressure, you could call this out by going into a 1-2 or 3S. This again just sort of adds on to the mental mind games that GT Goku is able to inflict when he's putting you under his stagger pressure. Honestly, I think his pressure is pretty strong in this patch. The startup on GT Goku's crouching unique attack, which comes out as 1, 2, or 3S, which namely just affects the trajectory that GT Goku flies at you at, has been sped up. So previously, it was 14 frame startup. If you take a look at this in terms of his pressure game, you could tell that previously, it was a true string off of his mediums, but not off of his lights. With the old startup, you were able to use this in GT Goku's re-jump combos. It's a pretty basic demonstration, but just to give you an idea. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the buffed 1, 2, and 3S startup. They're all 4 frames faster now, coming out of frame 10. So part of this might play a reason into why it true strings from 5S now, but this will also just namely make it a faster low to threaten the opponent with, as well as potentially change up some of GT Goku's combo routing. Obviously, the re-jump and everything should still work, but your timings might be slightly affected. So be sure that you practice and relearn those. Previously, jumping unique attack was not able to deflect Ki Blast like standing unique attack could. This basically meant that if GT Goku got into the air, and if you were up against a matchup that could somehow shoot horizontal Ki Blast when GT Goku was up in the sky, then he wasn't able to actually deflect against Ki Blast. It also meant that GT Goku was falling down into Ki Blast. He usually had to respect them. Otherwise, his callouts were going to be something committal, like doing a delay Kamehameha to try and float above them, going for a reverse Kamehameha to then close in on the opponent and give them ample time to anti-air him, or it would have been just to go for a delayed super dash, which again at some ranges was asking to be 2H, especially if you made contact with those Ki Blasts. Now, jumping unique attack for GT Goku also has the Ki Blast reflect property. So he could potentially be able to also counterattack any sort of Ki Blast property move using this attack while he's airborne. You will note that it's not as far-reaching as his grounded version, but, in air-to-air situations, this might come up in a couple of matchups. Previously, Bandai gave GT Goku the ability to run through the opponent while charging a Kamehameha. However, the problem with this buff was that it really didn't serve any purpose, as if you ran through the opponent while doing this Kamehameha, GT Goku wouldn't actually turn around to fire the Kamehameha at the opponent. The same side would work just fine. But if he crossed up, well, the startup was still quite slow, and again, he would aim in the wrong direction, sort of just begging the question of why? Just what are we even doing here, Bandai? And it seems like they actually wanted to address it in this version, which is nice. Bandai has rectified this whole mess of a new property for the move by actually speeding up the attack itself when GT Goku crosses up the opponent, and lets GT Goku now turn around after he crosses up the opponent, giving him a cross-up beam mix-up. Depending on when you release it, it can be as fast as about frame 29, with the same side frame 21. And of course, you can go back and forth between these. No matter when you do, it's just going to function and sort of work right here. Obviously, the more times you cross back and forth, it is going to be a bit gimmicky, but I've definitely seen players in tournaments get hit by the cross-up Kamehameha, probably just because they're not really looking for it yet, but I still think that this might be a fairly difficult mix-up to block, just because you can vary the timings enough to where there really isn't a good structure, I think, to fuzzy guard timing. And of course, your times are also going to vary based on when you go into this option from various normals for GT Goku. But this is honestly a nice addition that changes a change that used to be just what is this doing here, into an, oh, you finally completed the intended purpose of this change. Can't believe it took you a year, but it's here now. The stun time on mid-air Kamehameha has also been increased as an additional buff to GT Goku. In this situation, GT Goku had about 25 frames of advantage to work with. So you could actually link a 5L in this context before. but not a 5M. Additionally, if you got the opponent higher off the ground, without using the landing of GT Goku to cancel his recovery, then you weren't able to really get too many links in these situations. Let's take a look at the new air hit stun time on airborne Kamehameha. So there's a couple of extra frames here to work with, it seems like. I haven't been able to find new links off of this particular combo. 2M is just too slow, as is 5M. And when it comes to airborne combos, it's kind of a similar story here. It's not like I'm all of a sudden getting links here, but maybe there's some various heights in which you perform this where that is possible. I think the most applicable use of this change is going to be when you're using it to tag in your other character to get a Dragon Rush knockdown. This might be more reliable to do with some higher hit stun decays. If a GT Goku player has experienced that, let us know in the comments below. All versions of Dragon Flurry Fist now have less delay on whiff when you use them on the ground. Let's check out the old values. Negative 32 on whiff for the light version. Medium version was negative 43. And the EX version was negative 36. Now for the new delay in all versions of the move. 26 frames for the light version. 34 frames for the medium version. And 24 frames for the EX version. This should just make these safer options for GT Goku to throw out a neutral as he's trying to rush it down. The medium version of Dragon Flurry Fist also has another buff to it. They've increased the distance it moves, so let's compare the old version first. Not quite a full screen option. I would say roughly 3/4. Observant viewers probably already noticed the increased range on the medium Flurry Fist, but let's go ahead and demonstrate it again now that we just looked at the old. Not quite a full screen option, but still pretty nice. It should make GT Goku just a little more threatening. Able to threaten a 24 meterless lariat from like, little less than full screen. Kind of a nice thing, but the lack of invincibility on this move is definitely going to hold it back in these cases. The base damage of Super Ultra Spirit Bomb has been increased, so let's compare damage of these combos between the two versions of the game. This would be pretty simple GT Goku combo stuff. We're just namely interested in looking at the Spirit Bomb damage itself. So obviously the combo continues on from here, but as you can tell in the previous version, of a 5M starter, this combo used to do 7,196 damage. Now let's take a look at the same combo and see how much damage the Spirit Bomb is able to do here. As you might be able to tell, it's a monumental increase. 1,300 more damage when you use Spirit Bomb in your combos like this. That's genuinely kind of crazy, and I think that some players have been speculating if this damage is currently bugged. We'll see what happens in the upcoming patch from Bandai, but it certainly increases GT Goku's kill threshold when he uses this in his combos and makes an attractive option again for him to try and route into, which, you know what, I kind of appreciate. GT Goku's A and C assists have some buffs to them, so let's compare the A assist. Previously, it was pretty slow at 40 frames startup. This, of course, is a leftover nerf from right after about Season 3, where Bandai Namco really went after GT A assist, since it was arguably the best assist in the game at the time of Season 2. And now let's take a look at the new startup on his A assist. 33 frame startup. This honestly makes it a pretty competitive beam assist again, as it's only a few frames slower than some of the horizontal beams. It covers a great angle, and it has pretty much close to, if not slightly more than what its original block stun was. I can't remember the exact value off my head. But honestly, GT Goku A assist just might be a really good assist again. Most of the time I've seen players like go to his B assist or try to use his A assist, but honestly, I would have argued that using A assist before would have been suboptimal, but I genuinely think it's a pretty good choice. There's still a few features I think it's missing, like it doesn't fully jail the opponent all the way to the ground if they block it in mid-air, but at some of those lower heights, it certainly can still do that, and it's got decent enough lockdown, covers a really great angle, and it's like an iconic toolkit for the character that honestly feels close to what it used to be and with how crazy some of the other assists have gotten, I definitely think that it has arguably been power crept in some situations, so it's nice to see it get very close to what it originally was, and I think the game can handle it now. GG Goku C Assist has a number of changes, so let's go ahead and check them out. Previously, the C Assist would appear like this. GG Goku would be a little ways out in front of the opponent, which could mean that he was liable for getting hit in some situations. Additionally, it also wasn't Ki Blast immune. So as you can tell right here, GT Goku could be shot out just by the opponent trying to naturally zone you through neutral. The final thing to briefly mention, which I almost forgot to include, was the old C Assist startup. 40 frames, which was again on the slower side for some of these C Assist. So now let's take a look at the new behaviors of C Assist. As you might be able to tell, GT Goku spawns way farther back now, and the move is also faster at 35 frame startup instead of 40 frame startup. Of course, if you call this at full screen, GT Goku is going to still spawn in front of the opponent, albeit with a little more distance. But this should mean that in some close range situations, GT Goku might not be as prone to getting clipped out by the opponent. There's one more feature that also inherits as well. And as you might be guessing based on what recording I'm setting up right now, yes, it inherits his 5S and jump Ki Blast, ability to deflect Ki Blast. So now you can potentially use this to counteract your opponent's attempt to zone you with Ki Blast. Of course, if you get caught, it doesn't really do you much good. And if you get sniped in the startup, it also doesn't do you much good. But there are some times and situations where this still can work, so long as you call it out. I kind of feel like the stars have to align in certain ways, but, I mean, if it comes up to play, I mean, hey, it is technically buffed. After GT Goku was pretty much nerfed out of top meta relevancy ever since Season 2, it's nice to see Bandai not only going about reverting some of the nerfs they gave to GT Goku to put him down in the lower ends of the tier list, but also giving him some new tools for him to play with in this state of the game, which has certainly power crept what he was like back in peak Season 2. I think the big changes for him in this patch are going to be the changes to his 5S, giving him more aggressive ways of interacting with zoners that are using Ki Blast against him, as well as the change to his cross-up Kamehameha, giving him probably one of the most unique left-right mix-ups in the game that kind of just feels like Goku. I just freshly read the original Dragon Ball manga, and this kind of just feels like something that Goku would do. You know, firing up a Kamehameha, the guy's blocking in front of him, and then he runs behind him and fires into his back. That just feels like a perfect Toriyama gag of some kind that early Dragon Ball Goku would have done. And I'm kind of happy to see it fully realized in the game as it is right now, because previously that change made no sense, and now it kind of feels like we're finally seeing what the intent was from Bandai Namco. I also think that we'll have to see where the Spirit Bomb damage lies. I don't know if it's necessarily bugged damage, but it certainly is a huge buff to GT Goku, and the buffs to his A assist just sort of bring it back into those old nostalgic days of it being the best assist in the game. I don't think it's necessarily the best assist in the game in its current state, but I think it's certainly a good or even great assist, maybe even in a top 5, top 10 spot of assists. That would be an interesting tier list and discussion to have. But GT Goku certainly has a lot more utility in this patch. He has more tools to play with, and while I do worry about his ability to mix up the opponent, I mean, outside of left-right Kamehameha, what is he really doing to you? High-low super dash mix-up in the corner certainly works for him. No one's really been able to make this whole pogo thing work for his true, high-low mix-up setups, but maybe just people weren't interested in playing GT Goku because he wasn't too good before, but I genuinely think he's a solid character in this patch and is definitely something to be on the lookout for. Some people are messing around with Goku in this current version of the game, and I think now's a really great time to get back into learning this version of the character. So it's good to have you back, buddy. I've kind of missed you. I'm nostalgic about you. That's what it is. I'm nostalgic. All right, funny story happened. As soon as I uploaded the GT Goku video, Bandai Namco decided to drop patch 1.42 on us, and it actually includes one more change to GT Goku. I'll go ahead and going forward, I'll address the patch changes to some various characters that come after GT Goku in those videos, just so everything is consolidated, and I'll have an addendum video as well discussing some other changes. Not too many of the castmates were changed with patch 1.42. If there was anything, there was one change regarding a specific move in their kit, and it's going to dramatically change the analysis and my tone for some characters coming up, looking at you, UI Goku, but I wanted to address the thing that GT got in patch 1.42. So they've changed the hits on implemented this Kamehameha so that instead of blasting the opponent away, they now spiral in place. And if you're close enough to them, well, you can get this. 2H doesn't reach, but 5M can reach. So this should be able to allow you to like get like an additional medium hit, save Super Dash for later in your combos, improving your reward. But if you do the cross-up, which I'm now actually just having some new issues with getting this cross-up to work. I really haven't been able to sort of find sequences where I'm able to like really get this to work since, you know, if I'm dashing forward, I'm not really finding a link off of this. Like 5L doesn't really work here. If it's same side right here, it works pretty fine. If I like try to hold this and come right back to you, then you can make this work. But at that point, they're blocking your cross up. You know what I mean? So I don't really think this changes too much about GT Goku, but maybe I'm just not finding the tech for it. Anyways, that's my patch 1.42 addendum to GT Goku. Thanks for watching the video, guys.